Last year, I traveled 12,500 kilometers from Germany to China in an electric car. It took me 30 days. It was an experience of a lifetime. And I basically made a little video with, a compilation of all the videos I took during the trip. And I hope you like it. When you want to travel from Germany to China by car, you have two options. Either you drive through Iran or you drive through Russia. Um, Driving through Iran at the time where we did this trip was almost impossible. Israel had just struck key infrastructure in Iran, and they were looking for spies, foreign spies that were informing Israelis. So I didn't want to take the risk. We could have taken a ferry from Azerbaijan to Kazakhstan, but then we wouldn't have actually driven the car all the way. So we decided instead to drive through Russia. Surprisingly, it's quite easy to get a visa as a Westerner to Russia. It's more about planning carefully where you enter and how you enter and what you have on your phone and that kind of stuff. Entering the country from Georgia was much easier than I thought. It took 5 hours. The complicated part was all the import document for the car, but we managed to pass the border. There was no hostility, and we were quite relieved actually. But that feeling didn't last for very long. Since the region of Russia that we crossed was quite close to the Ukrainian conflict, there was just no GPS available. There were tons of police and army checkpoints that were looking for, potential spies that would smuggle drones inside the country. I assume so. And so it was very difficult to make our way through the country. We were slowed down a lot by multiple stops. Nothing major for us. There was no strong hostility because of our nationality or the fact that our license plate was in Germany, for example. It was very difficult to get money in the country. We thought before entering that our Chinese credit cards would work, at least, but they didn't. And we were lucky enough to find a Russian guy who had a bank account in Georgia and who agreed to withdraw money for us. And I sent him the money on his Georgian bank account. Without this, I'm not sure how this trip would have ended. The regions that we crossed in Russia were regions that have been tense in the past and where 20 years ago it would have been difficult to travel through. They were Ossetia, Chechnya, Dagestan, to name a few. Um, but we did drive through these regions just in one day. We drove as fast as we could, and we didn't want to stay long in the country to avoid any sort of issue. The locals were quite helpful. I think they were very surprised that we would travel in the country at this time, especially in these regions. If they could help, they did. And as we exited the country, I thought that basically everything was good, and I was just going to be able to be on my way without any issue. But when I arrived at the Russian Kazakh border control and gave my passport, it just didn't work. The system rejected it, while the other people from my team with a different nationality were able to pass through. And I had to wait for someone to come and pick me up, requesting me to take my phone with me as well. And he just asked, questions about our trip, wanting to know why we were doing this, and but without any sort of apparent hostility. He then took my phone and asked me to unlock it and basically scan through it, looking for pictures or messages that could have been deemed sensitive, but there were none. And he told me he would give me back my passport. I just had to wait in the car and wait 5 minutes. The 5 minutes turned into 40 minutes, where I was fairly anxious, and the car was surrounded by fairly intimidating military personnel. But eventually, a woman came with my passport and told me to be on my way. At that point, it was a big relief. In this country, like some other countries, your fate doesn't really depend on yourself, and until you're gone, you don't really know what's going to happen because of the larger geopolitical game. But in this event, everything went fine, and because of the overall tension during this trip, we didn't take any videos or pictures, and so that is why I'm not able to show you anything about Russia for this trip. But then we entered Kazakhstan, and it was a completely different story, and quite a mesmerizing and very impressive country with beautiful landscape. So I hope you liked the video and that it inspired you to travel to remote places. If you have any questions or comments about this trip and you want to know more about some details that I have not covered, please leave some comments below and I'll make sure to answer. I'll see you next time. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye-bye.